issues in education. You know all about it. Our roundtable discussion here on KTRS brought to you by Ittner. And Rick Johnston, the superintendent at Mahomet-Seymour Community Schools, continues with us, and we bring back Dennis Young, who is the CEO and owner at Ittner. And with Ittner, you guys have even evolved. We're not just saying Ittner Architects anymore because it's a bigger picture.
It's a much bigger picture. And, education spans many different traditional market silos in terms of healthcare, corporations, universities, of course, K through 12. So, our approach in looking at the big picture is about optimizing human performance and experience through informed design. And as we talk about it a little bit, I'll explain what that means.
So is that workplace in addition to schools?
Absolutely. The kinds of skill sets that need to get developed are very clear. They're very specific. And although the teachers have a very important role, as is the curriculum, but so does the space and how schools are designed. Plays a vital role in that.
And, Rick, I'm thinking when I was a kid, the chairs always seemed so rigid, and you had your desk. Is there some data that says they're better students if they're sitting up straight? I mean, I would have preferred a beanbag.
I'm almost frightened here because it's like you've done your research real well because we've actually got an older building that is a 1960 building that we've got a third-grade teacher right now that is experimenting with different level and height of chairs, rotating her kids from a small platform on the floor to where kids are basically on their knees or on their behinds most of the day. Others that are a regular height, others are taller, and some are even standing. And kids can choose what they would like to do at different times and rotate through, and we're actually looking at that.
That's interesting.
So I don't know whether you got some inside information.
I did not know that. I wish I could say I did my homework, but I didn't.
Yeah.
That would be great to see the data coming out of that.
And so we're doing it on a very small scale, obviously, but obviously those things are comfort. Really plays into that a lot, and I think for the biggest part of design. Having gone through a couple of major projects and the new early childhood center that we built with it and there's guidance, it's all about having the right people at the table at the right moments in design. And so you might have someone who has a great technology background and a vendor who you really like working with. You've got to have your instructional staff and those people key, trying to create that vision of how you want to teach 5 years from now, because that's what we always ought to be doing. And then from a functionality standpoint and design, you got to have the right people there from Ittner's standpoint as well. So we feel very good about that, and I think that's key in when you're looking at design.
It's amazing how it changes so quickly, because I think even 30 to 20 years ago, everybody had to have a computer lab. And you think of those giant computers that look like TV monitors sitting on a table. And now it's like, no, you can walk around with a tablet in your hand. You could sit in that beanbag.
Absolutely.
And if you're an administrator or a superintendent, you're like, oh, I need a computer lab. And then 20 years later, like, what'd you build that for?
Well, again, and the idea is you're trying to take the lab into the kids' hands so they're carrying the lab around with them all day instead of going to a place where technology lives. And so I mentioned earlier about the environment that we started in 2012. We had less than 20 mega bandwidth for our entire school district when we got there in 2012, which really means to the average person out there, when you have groups buying smart boards on the wall and then they keep locking up because your highway to the internet is a 2-lane dirt road, right, and you want an 8-lane highway going through downtown Atlanta, which is kind of what we have now. So we're, it's you've got to build the infrastructure first and then branch out in a lot of things that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Are you doing redesigns too, Dennis, where you take beautiful old building, but it needs the new guts, Well,
it's really interesting. You can take an older building. You can preserve the architectural heritage, kind of like this space here, but you have to understand how learning occurs and how students access information and knowledge. And they access it, as Rick was saying, differently than they ever did before. So it really changes how you think about the school, the kinds of support spaces that support the classroom, and that the classrooms are truly multi-purpose spaces. They're not designed one way.
Yeah, from a common sense standpoint, it gets back to, do I learn just in case or do I learn just in time?
Yeah.
And that's to the fact of the guts of what he's talking about.
So when you did your early childhood design working with Ittner, do you talk to teachers too? Do you talk to parents? How do you?
Well, we start with the existing space we have. And then we have the conversation, and we visit other places. We look at what's out there. We look at trends. We look at what's available to us. And then we come up with a design of what is the optimum flex space that we could have within that square footage. And so when you talk about internal voice lift systems, and you talk about smart boards mounted no higher than 2 feet off the wall, so those little people can get to them. And, so you start designing in that way to match that grade level. That's where we started with this particular building with Ittner.
So I come back to the narrative that we believe in is optimizing human performance and experience, just as Rick was saying. It's different for every curriculum area, for every age group, and you really have to get to that level of detail. Otherwise, all you're doing is warehousing kids, and that's not what learning space is about.
Yeah, and so employers, in addition to educators, need to have kind of that same mindset. I could have 10 people sitting around their cubicle falling asleep, or I might have a different environment where they're actually productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Rick just is showing, too bad the audience can't see this, performance and experience, just as Rick was saying. It's different for every curriculum area, for every age group, and you really have to get to that level of detail. Otherwise, all you're doing is warehousing kids, and that's not what learning space is about.
Yeah, and so employers, in addition to educators, need to have kind of that same mindset. I could have 10 people sitting around their cubicle falling asleep, or I might have a different environment where they're actually productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Rick just is showing, too bad the audience can't see this, but a great picture of their early childhood classroom. And when you look at it, I'll let Rick describe it. It's very flexible.
Yeah, so all the furniture is mobile. We can create large group area instruction, small group instruction, one-on-one instruction, individual instruction with kids, and then spaces where kids learn on their own as well. So you want to try to incorporate different ways that kids can learn into that space, and that's what our target was.
Even long form tables where they sit, and across instead of just desks.
Right. Now look at that picture. What do you think's missing in that room? This
the wooden hard
test.
ruler that we used to get hit with.
Well,
as a
that's
kid.
missing too.
Do they still make those like yardsticks that were made of like a pine tree?
I think so. I saw one with your name on it just the other day.
Okay, what am I? Let's see.
What's missing?
I'm going to just guess the clock. No.
What's missing is the place where they have. They call it the cubbies, where they have their book bags, where they put their lunchbox and their shoes and boots and all those things. And I guess the next obvious question is, well, if it's not in the room, where is it? And based on your last session, it is in a adjoining room that serves as a safe room. It's a combined safe room for both intruders as well as for weather. And two classrooms of adjoining this room go into that space. So kids, the way it's designed, which is age appropriateness, is when you deal with the younger kids, they're not going to get down the hallway 8 classrooms to a gym, say if there is a severe weather. But they're so used to walking in that room every day, getting their lunchbox or getting their coats and going out to play, that when the teacher says it's now time to get in that room, it's not a problem.
It's not a foreign idea.
They will get in there very quickly. There's plenty of room. And as you can see, there's a door that goes straight out to the playground. So if they really had to get out, there's a way out. It's a way of, you can't learn if you don't feel safe. So we're trying to create environments that really optimize that experience that students have and teachers have. I think you even had another school come over, an older school, and visit.
And in fact, we're getting ready to go out for bid. What you see, we've got an existing building right now that is an early childhood center, okay, and then district offices. And what we're going to do is put a 2-story addition on the back side of that existing building, and we're going to bring grades 1 and 2 out to that early childhood center. And in doing so, now the safety of those kids has to be taken into consideration. And what are we going to do for the second floor, for instance, for a weather shelter? Because it would be very, very expensive to build those safe rooms between those rooms. So what happens is, the rooms, the cubby rooms will look the same as what these tornado rated rooms are, will stay the same in this edition, but the weather safe space will be a FEMA gymnasium built to FEMA specs, will actually be a community safe space with restrooms, power backup, all those things in a FEMA-rated building here. So we're trying to take the new regulations into account as well and modify to make it more age-appropriate.
Absolutely.
And how are you guys able to get, I know funding's always a big issue. You guys are getting things done there. It's just a healthy tax base?
No, and when you talk about funding, this last year was the first year that we've had a balanced budget at Mahomet-Seymour in 7 years. And so we've gone through all the angst that others have. We're fortunate to have the 1% sales tax, and we've done the first part of this building on the backs of that 1% sales tax initiative with bonding. We had some existing bonding going away, and so we've the house payment going away. We're going to keep the house payment level, and then we're going to do some additional bonding with some other things and the tort to go into this. So we're using 3 different funding mechanisms, trying to keep, in the end, the tax rate level, which we're going to do.
Well, your taxpayers obviously approve that, so they.
Well, actually, it was a situation since the tax rate didn't go up, we didn't have to approve that, and so again, we're a little different animal. The school district is very, very highly thought of in Mahomet. We're considered to be a very high performing school district south of I-80, and it's a very good place. Our problem in Mahomet is we currently don't have a lot of commercial development. So when earlier they're talking about funding and local capacity on tax, it's more about how wealthy your commercial development is than residential. Ours is more on the backs of the residential market, which we're 90%, 95% valued on our residential. So the city is really working hard to bring commercial in right now, which will help alleviate a lot of that.